Greetings, everybody, and welcome to this official and celebratory opening of our new Ascended Master School here in Zealand. I am the Kwan San, and I guess, except for a few people here, most of you don't know me or don't know me very well, and I don't officially know you very well. But what I will say, and what maybe is the most important thing to know, is that I love you with all of my heart for an infinity of reasons. And I know that beyond all the personalities that sit here right now, that love that I feel for you is the same love that is within all of you. It is what connects us, what keeps us together as not only a species, but as explorers of consciousness in this reality. So, again, I am very happy and very joyful that you are all here. I'm probably more nervous than most of you right now. Truth be told, it's been a long time since we've done public presentations like this with a beautiful audience like all of you who are sitting here right now. We started a long time ago, long before most of you were born in 2005, with a very simple dream. And that dream was to manifest the place that you are sitting in today. It took a long time. Today is 2023, but it is an important message to everyone to never give up on your dreams, to never give up on your passion, to know for sure that as you go into this passion, as you let go of all the things that stop you from entering into it, that beautiful angels will appear around you on your path. You might have to let go of a lot. Everyone who is here in the crew today knows that. You might have to travel the entire world to find each other, which we did. But once it all comes together, there is a power in the connection that you can make as your dream, as your passion grows. And with every person that joined our organization, that joined what I like to call the crew, bit of a sci-fi fan, you know, that dream grew and that dream became more solid until this year. Actually, last year we came close to it, but this year it manifested. And it manifested in a way that I never thought it would. First of all, I thought I would be having this presentation in Hawaii right now, a bit further for most of you to travel to. But we are here, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Zealand, none of us are originally from Zealand, and I don't know how many people are, but for us it has proven to be a true paradise. I cannot describe it in any other way. It feels that we are in a very different location than most of what I could call the Netherlands or Belgium or the rest of Europe even. I've said because as we have traveled all over the place in the last 10, 15 years or so, we have been, for instance, in Shasta, in Mount Shasta in California. And we've been in Sedona, if any of you know these places, and Hawaii itself. And all of these places carry something that we have found here. And we never expected it. This place announced itself to us, and then everything went pretty normal after that. So anyway, we started in 2005, and today here we are in 2023. Many of us, Eva, who is sitting there, was one of the first people to start the organization with us and to host events and that sort of thing. And in one of the very first private sessions that you had, the Cosmic 12, which used to speak a lot, a collection of Ascended Masters, at the beginning in 2005 till 2007, let's say, before they started splitting up in individual voices like Kutumi and Adamus and those sorts of people. You had a private session, Amy, or Eva, we use both names very often, in which already back then it was shared that a type of school of life, let's say, was supposed to be created, a school of life which was not about rules and regulations, but about consciousness, about the human heart and its connection to the infinite universe that is within and that expresses itself outside of us. And already back in those days, it was said that this place would manifest. And now, when later one of the teachers will come in, I'm very sure they're going to say they always knew it was going to be here, you know, that sort of thing. But in a way, we always did. We always did. I myself, or at least the body, is born in Limburg in Belgium. So for me, it is not that far. Again, I only had to travel the world to find my way here, let's say. And as I said, since 2005, we didn't quite understand school of life. Why is it necessary to build something like that or to create something like that? Because ultimately, everyone has all of the wisdom within. Everyone can access this, and that is true. You know, you don't need to come here, you don't need to sit here and hear truth being spoken, or if you consider it truth anyway, from the outside. That's obvious. You all carry this within. So this is not only about that. This is about making communion, about making connection, about creating community in a way that we haven't been able to do so before. And not only here in Zealand, but also there's many people right now that are going to be watching this, who are all over the world. As I said, we've traveled all over the world throughout all of these years. And in that time, there have been many connections made. Some of our channeled messages have been seen over 1 million times since 2007. And many people have felt the assistance and the sovereignty that the messages attempt to bring. But especially, what has always been, as I said, the most important was the connection, the community. And that is something that we have all missed for many, many years. And not only because of ourselves, not only because we decided to stop organizing events for a while, but I think that you all know how the last 4 or 5 years on this planet have played out. So as I said, back in 2005 I thought, or we all thought, what's the point of an organization like this? And then 2020 comes along, then the lockdowns come along, then government mandates come along, and all of a sudden, everything that these teachers have been saying for many, many years, all of a sudden manifested into reality. I don't know how many people here, for instance, like alternative information, such as presented in David Icke's information. I know he's a very dualistic person right now in many people's minds. But if you look at that sort of information, or information from people all over the world, including in this organization, including what has come through here, then I think it took everyone by surprise, even though it shouldn't, that these years came to pass. All of a sudden, Earth, or at least our society, was no longer the place that it once was. And even though everyone knew that under the surface of our minds and the politeness that makes up most of this world, let's say, there was a different type of energy, a darkness, a duality that hadn't quite shown itself. This is something we're going to be talking about a little bit today. I have a bit of an idea what is going to be coming through in the channeled messages and the Q&A later. But it is certainly something that made us think that now that everything in this society officially has been reopened again, it doesn't take much to start looking for the same types of pieces, the same types of puzzles here in the Netherlands alone. If we look at the information that has been coming out in the news here in the last few years, we know that governments, and at least the ones running these governments, haven't been very kind for people and have made it almost impossible for most people to live. And rules and regulations kept coming in and continue in this moment to come in. The result is that since 2005, you can say, you have slowly seen this society move from a more organic way of being into, how shall I say, a computational model of reality almost, where everything works almost like a computer system. You either fit in the right box or you don't. And of course, I know that many of you here don't necessarily think like this or don't live their lives like this. It is exactly why we are bringing you together. And it's exactly why I'm so grateful that all of you have decided to be here today. Because I think, and maybe you agree with me, that over the years, most people who want to see a different planet, who want to see a different way of life, make one single mistake. And it's a Lemurian mistake, if you will, because the being that is going to come in here later, the Ekara San, is a Lemurian being. And in Lemuria, there was a saying, and there are many sayings in Lemuria, but one of them was expression before experience. And this is something that many people get wrong. They are presented, confronted with the world around them. They think this world is already manifest, that it is a world based on matter, based on solid shape. Of course it isn't. Everyone here probably knows that. And in that world, things supposedly happen to you. Anything can happen to you. Good things can happen to you, bad things can happen to you, terrible things, wonderful things, everything. But from the Lemurian perspective, and also from the perspective of the ascended teachers, which I often refer to as ascended life as a grouping, this is quite the opposite. The manifested world around us, obviously, is the result of our inner manifestation. Now, in that inner manifestation, none of us actually experience a separate world. There are some principles that also were used back in Lemuria, and these principles are based on the simple active ingredients of reality creation. In other words, we claim that this world is not made of matter, that it is not made of vibration, that it is not made of photons even, that all of these things are merely the manifestation of your inner consciousness expressing this world. Underneath all of that, the way in which you are expressing this is through very simple ingredients of reality creation. So simple that even a baby knows them. The first one is love. The second one, joy, freedom, truth, life, gratitude, grace, and well-being. These are much like the elements of earth, wind, fire, etc., building blocks of reality. They exist within you, and not only do they exist within you, they exist in a place inside of you that is the same in all of us. We often refer to this place as the heart space, obviously, but many people still believe or still think when they go in there that they are in their own heart space. And since 2007, the Imzaia material of which all of this is based, has been teaching that that place is something that during Lemurian days was called the Akene. Now that Akene, much like quantum science has now discovered, exists in a quantum entanglement. In other words, and in a super entanglement on top of that. In other words, there's only one heart space, only one Akene, and it expresses itself in all of us individually. Now, that means that if you go in here, as most of you do, I assume, that you are everyone, that you are connected, not only connected to everyone, but that you are everyone. And it is these principles, these very simple principles, that are needed in order to change reality. Many people might think differently about this, but I don't feel that going to protests or speaking out towards power or any of these things, or trying to take up arms, even like you see in some countries, makes any change whatsoever. Because you are already dealing with an external reality that you have already manifested through your belief systems. And yes, even though you may not think that a war in Ukraine, for instance, is a manifestation of these ingredients that I just said, love, joy, freedom, etc., it truly is. What this material teaches is that these building blocks can also be used. They are all based on geometries, let's say, but these geometries can be inverted. They can be twisted. Think about the infinity sign. And think about the infinity sign that the new Facebook company uses, Meta. There, the infinity sign is sort of twisted into what you could say is a game controller for a computer or something. But what it actually shows is an inverted geometry, and a geometry that has been quietly or silently twisted, changed slightly, so that the manifestation that follows that geometry in matter becomes something that is not the original intention of these original geometries. And that's what we call inverted geometry. The good news about that, however, that they're inverted, is that everything, no matter what presents itself to you, is still based on love, is still based on joy, on freedom, on truth, on life, on gratitude, grace, and well-being. You just don't recognize it because it has been twisted up, inverted, and manifested in such a way that it can look dramatic to you, that it can look painful to you. These can be things that are happening in your body. A headache, for instance, can feel painful, but it is still an inverted geometry that comes out of the manifestation of love, joy, and freedom, etc. So, as I was saying earlier, when you look at these basic principles, love, during Lemurian times, these would be used to easily get to a state of universal or unity consciousness without any problem. What people used to do, and what the students here also regularly practice with, is the understanding that when you access the state of love, that there is nothing that comes before it, and there is nothing that comes after it. Basically, truly putting you in the now moment. This was first presented by an ascended energy known as Solaris, which has been speaking through this body for many, many years, probably back in 2008 or late 2007, I would say, where she brings the key ingredient to start working on the ascension path right to the human being by speaking about love being the only thing that triggers a moment where nothing comes before it and nothing comes after it. That means, technically speaking, that any idea you might have of a person that you've seen 5 seconds ago is incorrect. Because that is the beginning of your personality creating a past event and a possible future event. They are no longer the authentic representations of the being that is actually standing in front of you, that you are sharing your space with. That's the first step. And that step alone, theoretically speaking, for many people that call themselves light workers and seekers of consciousness, is very understandable theoretically. When you have to put it into practice, however, it becomes another thing altogether. And when I say put it into practice, I don't mean just during an exercise that you're doing for 5 minutes. I mean putting it to practice constantly, continuously, from the moment you re-enter this reality in the morning until you leave again. But you can already see the problem with the society that I was describing earlier, of course. How are you going to live in a society that defines everything based on a personality that is the collection of all of your past experiences, of everything that you have done in life, every grade in school you've ever gotten, everything you've done right, everything you've done wrong, studies you have done, partners you have had, work you have had, friendships, you name it. Children, dogs, cats, houses, locations, objects, all of these things, they all belong anchored in your past, even though you are experiencing them now. In Lemurian times and in this material, this is a simple thing that is called the circle of awareness. If you think about a circle, you put in the now is in the center of that circle, the eternal now. And you divide that circle into 4 squares. And you could say at the top of the circle you have the future of the self and the future of the other. The bottom of the circle you have the past of the self and the past of the other. Now I challenge you, try to have a thought, try to think about something in your life that doesn't belong in those 4 quadrants. In the past of the self, the past of the other, the future of the self, and the future of the other. That is the awareness that one can keep in mind when one enters into the state of eternal now, using the active ingredient of love. It's really that simple. You activate it right here, and you bring it to your mind. Now, I could go into a lot of details, and we will do so at another point, because, of course, the mind itself, we do not speak necessarily about the chakra system. We speak about the kakra system. This, again, comes from Lemurian times. Many people don't like to hear this, and since 2007, many people haven't liked hearing this, but I firmly claim, and I know for a fact, that the chakra system is a dualistic creation that has been put upon people in order to stop them from accessing their actual authentic self. And I find that if you go deeper through the chakra system, you will discover what the Lemurians called, and has been available on our website for many years, the Ka-kra system. This is the original chakra system from which the building of the chakra systems even began. The way in which you can see, and again, many people don't like this, but the way in which you can see that the chakra system is a human invention is that basically every few years a new book gets written about a new chakra. The 13th chakra, the 14th chakra, much like Reiki and all these other things. They're great tools to work with, and they help you, the chakras can help you very well to understand the vibrational system of reality, the 12 vibrations in which this hologram manifests, but not anything that is beyond it. At that point, you focus on the Kakra system, which is a very simple system. It's the head, the heart, and the belly. The head you speak of as the Akonai in Lemurian. The heart you speak of as the Akene in Lemurian. And here you have the Adonai. It's very simple. The only one that's real, even in those 3, is the Akene that I spoke of earlier. This heart space, that is this one unique heart space that we all share. A collective, unified consciousness. From the heart space, when you enter into realities that are dualistic, such as this one, and we can talk about that a great deal too, you manifest your mind, which is there to do the thinking, of course, and you manifest your belly, which is there to do the creating from the heart. So I bring this up because I was talking to you about love and activating love, right? Now, when you activate this love, you can, of course, begin here in the heart space where it is the easiest to do so. But after that, if you want to activate what I was earlier talking about, you focus on the head chakra, your mind, and the space that is around it, let's say, and you think again about 4 quadrants. One here, one here, one here, and one here. Very simple. In this first area of your mind, that is where you focus on the energy of love. Now, when you do so, as I said, and you do this with intent, you will find that your past and your future fade away. But it goes further than that. One of the ways in which I simply like to do is when I take a walk here on the polders or something, simply while you're walking, I focus on love. And as I do, simply anything that came before and anything that came after disappears. You're in the now moment. At that moment, you focus on the next active ingredient of reality creation, which is joy. Now, joy is in itself a combination of love and itself. So you see, this is a build-up that happens. Now, with joy, a true state of joy, something very interesting happens. What keeps you out of joy? What keeps you even out of happiness most of the time? It's up here. Even when you have pain here, it's up here. And the pain that comes from the lack of joy is the idea, the inverted idea, that the space that is within you is separate from the space that is outside of you. Focusing on joy stops that space from being separate and collapses them into one state. So first you have been focusing on the fact that there is nothing that comes before and nothing that comes after. That opens you up to a space where the inner world and the outer world are one and the same. That is the space of joy. If you go further to a state of freedom, at that point, now that you have reached this balance between inner and outer space, you focus on the truth that all the beings that you see in the space outside of you, whether they be humans, plants, animals, bricks, houses, the wind, is the same being, one and the same being than all the beings that you find in your inner world. There is only one being sitting here in this room and talking to itself right now, and that is the Creator Self, from which all of you have manifested these personalities, the many lifetimes you live. That all gets unified in a space of freedom. Then, when you take another step into a space of truth, at that point, you become aware of the fact that every single point that is outside of you and every single point that is within you is one and the same point, just like what I said earlier about the Akane. Every single photon that you see is not, science on that level, according to Ascended Life, has it very wrong. Science currently believes that there are 8 billion hearts on the planet and that there are trillions and trillions of photons that make up matter. And Ascended Life says, no, there's one photon. One. And this one photon, in a holographic superimposed state, creates all of the other photons that you see, all of the other light that you see, everything. Now, that is the state of truth, the understanding that all of those points, think about it as pixels for a minute, that's easier maybe, you know. All of those pixels, all of these points are different, yet they are one and the same in such a way that they are the same, yet they all have unique properties in time and space. That's the only difference between this photon here and this photon here. It's the same photon, it's just that its individual signature is manifesting slightly more to the right, let's say. And that's the same for all of you, that's the same for all of us here, everyone. This simplicity is where this work that we present says that we should start our day at that point. In other words, you could claim that you are not really the human that you intended to be when you first decided to take on this shape, this lifetime, and this body, without these states I just described actually being intact. Because otherwise, your life is being lived by all of the outside forces, all of the rules and regulations, and everything else that you think yourself to be. Now, nobody says that there's a problem with that. If you or anyone wants to live life that way, that's fine. It's part of the experience. You could call it an experiential school, right? So it's fine. But the truth is that you cannot be telling yourself stories at that time. Because what is going to happen, of course, and everyone here knows this, you're all at various stages of your life, and you all have people that are older than you in your life. And you can see that in most of those cases, it's not for everyone, luckily, but in many of these cases, and it can also start happening at a very young age, something begins to happen, which is what is called the narrowing of parameters. The parameters that your personality thinks is right and is wrong. The bandwidth in which you exist, that you say, these are the people I want around me because they think in a certain way, they are in a certain way, certain things about life are good, other things are bad. These things become more and more narrow, the more energy is siphoned off of you in the now and stored in heavy, heavy burdens, if you will, in the past of the self, in the past of the other, judgments, ideas, pain that never was healed with others, and therefore the future of the self and the future of the other. So what that does is it narrows more and more over time the bandwidth of your infinite energy that is coming, your infinite life force that is coming in here. And it allows for you to therefore have a more narrow personality profile, a more narrow look on the world. That's why a lot of people, as they get more and more confronted with these situations of past and future, become less and less happy. They become more grumpy. They start taking it out on others, all sorts of things. Some of them get in power and take it out on others even more. Others do that in families. Some people just take it out on themselves and it eats themselves alive. These things are all the result of not actually allowing you to be you. And you can then say, well, but there's a lot of responsibilities and other people expect all sorts of things from me. Yes, that is true, and you cannot simply walk away from responsibility, but it is also true, of course you can if you want to, but it is also true that by not changing yourself and not speaking out kindly, always kindly to others, and offering them the potential of moving into a different way of looking at the world and looking at life that is freer, that is more loving, that is more joyful, more based on truth. If you don't offer that potential, then you are just perpetuating the same game, the same problem. And I know again that many of you, the ones that I have seen on Facebook, I know that a lot of you do a lot of things in this world in order to enhance life, to make it better, more beautiful for others. But this is again my point. If you go back to the Lemurian expression of expression before experience, what you express is what you get in the world, then the truth of it is that if you do not open yourself up, or if you do not, let's say, remove from yourself these limitations, then you are always going to be expressing a world that has these things in it that you do not like. We call these vibrational habits. Things that are part of your personality, belief systems that you might have or might have had, that you now have under some form of balance, let's say. But these vibrational habits, they stay within you, and if you are not conscious of them, which most people in this world are not, you are going to, by default, manifest these belief systems over and over and over again. Now, again, all of this is known by all of you probably in theory, but the point we are trying to make here is putting it into practice. And not just putting it into practice, as I said earlier, during some exercise here or there, but by making it your life's work, by making it your life's mission, here in your heart, to step into the being that you came here to be in this lifetime. As I said earlier, there have been many things that have happened, especially in the last 3 or 4, 5 years, that have shocked a lot of people. They shocked us too. I still remember, was it March 2020, the first lockdown here in the Netherlands took place during the COVID era. And we had just opened up our new website. And we lived in 2 different houses. At that point, we lived in Brabant. And our crew was in 2 different locations, like is the same for many of you, and we couldn't even come together unless we would have broken the law. Now, I won't say if we did or we didn't break the law, but officially, you couldn't. And initially, we were indeed silly enough to actually celebrate the opening of our own website and the start of this new phase of our project on little screens. I mean, I still remember you, Amber, and Tara over there dancing on the laptop, trying to get the same music through. These sorts of silly things, silly rules, silly situations. I can talk about so many. They annoy me every day. And that is where I have a problem with my own past and future self, you see. These things annoy me because you don't want this for people. You don't want people to be told what sort of heating system they can put in their house. You don't want to be told by how many people you can be in your house. And if anyone thinks that all of that has now come to an end, then I have to admit that I believe that that is not necessarily true. But it isn't true in the way that most of you maybe think what I'm trying to say. I am not saying that all of these things are going to come back. Because the message that is going to come in later, which I was lying in bed awake for all night, because, you know, these guys, they don't shut up. Just keep going when a moment like this is going to happen. I was told a lot of information already about the phase that we are in now, and it is very, very interesting, which is exactly why I am talking about you creating your reality in a practical way that you have probably never found yourself doing before. The message will also speak about the period that came before all of this, the period that had to do with 2012, and the period that even goes all the way back to the 1960s. I won't share too much about it, because otherwise Ekara doesn't have to come in today. But it does go all the way back there, and I think that most of you, if you take stock of what will have been said after this message, that you might agree with me that there has been a very long build-up of a very long con game, a very long charade of people giving their power away to outside forces. And it is my hope, within the opening of this school, to see this vibrant community that has always been here in Zealand. I wish I had known about this before, because then we would have come a long time ago to see this community here. It is my hope that here and in many other places on earth, we can make a starting point to activate a group, a community of beings worldwide that begin to understand that you create reality within, and that are given the simple tools, the simple metaphysical, spiritual, energy-based tools to do this work themselves in their own lives, in their own hearts. And that is what we are trying to bring. This is also why we made the decision for which we have a decision that we have been wanting to make actually since 2005, to open all of this up free and from the heart. We feel that this is also important right now, to understand that we can move beyond the financial restrictions, the monetary restrictions, the dualistic restrictions of the mind, and everything else that keeps us separate. Of course, we ourselves are not millionaires and therefore cannot do all of this for free, but that is exactly why we set up a system with all 9 of us here to make it so that we use everything, all of the money that everyone makes in their daily jobs, to make this place a reality and to make it free for everyone. Because you know very well that it is very often those that have found themselves at the edge of society, or at least the edge of financial society, that have either chosen to drop out because none of it is worth it, or that have been pushed out because they speak up too much. And it is exactly that community, that group of people, that is now ready to change the world. That is what I believe. And that is why all of this is offered for free here and anywhere in the world, so anyone can use these tools and make this happen. Again, as I said at the beginning of this introduction, I'm nervous. I'm still a little bit nervous. But I hope that as we get to know one another, for those of you that choose to join again at a later date, that we come to a place where, much like the Lemurian, with simply a look in each other's eyes, feeling each other's hearts, we change the fabric of this world exactly into the new earth that we all imagine it possibly to be. So, having said all of that, I'm going to take a short break. After that, the Ekara San will come in, and then the Pahdasan'ka Barak Solarys San over there will play live music during the channel. In the meantime, if you need anything, Eva and the others are here for you. We'll break for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll continue. Thank you very much. All right, it's now time to bring the Ekara San in, who's going to be here for what I hope to be is going to be a beloved and empowering message for all of you. I'm going to start together with the Pahdasan'ka with a very short meditation to set the energy a little bit, to get out of our heads, and then I'll leave and the Ekara San will be here. For anyone that hasn't listened to the Ekara San before yet, he's a Lemurian energy. He used to be part of the, what you could call the organizational part of Lemuria. He was part of the councils of Lemuria. All of this information, if you don't know much about Lemuria or you don't know much about what I've been saying during the introduction, which largely was a summary of some things that have been discussed in great detail, of course, in past work. All of you can simply go to our website, imzaia.world. You can go there without making an account, simply just by being there, or you can decide to make a free account, and then you can comment and that sort of thing and interact with one another. But there, you can go and watch all of our work since 2005, which is like over 400 pieces of channeled information or something like that, plus a whole bunch of extra articles and extra videos, radio shows, video shows, that sort of thing, that explain in great depth some of the things I've been speaking about earlier, and of course also much more than that. So you can just go there and pick it up where we left it off after this introduction here. One more note, there's a couple of, quite a few pieces actually, of the original material that we've recorded since 2005 that is not yet online. We are still working on restoring all of that and making it available to everyone again. For everyone that is here, you'll be glad to know that the first 50 to 70 pieces of the material were actually channeled in Dutch. Starting with the Familie van Licht, or the Family of Light, which is an angelic group of beings, including Michael and all of them, that came in from 2005 until about 2007 and presented all of the material that we did at that time. We presented all over Antwerp back then, and Ghent, basically all over Belgium and the Netherlands. Eva, who's currently not here, she's coming back soon. She was the one responsible for organizing all of those events, so we owe her a great deal of gratitude for all of that. She'll hear that later, I guess. And after the Family of Light finished its material that it presented, which was all about a concept they called inscension, incensi, instead of ascension. They said about much of what I've been talking about earlier, that all of these things needed to become part of you, needed to be brought back out of you, and that was the inscension process preceding the ascension process, basically. After the Family of Light, we went for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half, with the energy of Source, who also came through this body quite a few times. Basically the energy of spirit, you could say, or the creator self, that also presented a whole bunch of messages. In those days, we did what we called quantum classes in Wilrijk and in Belgium, somewhere else in Leuven, I think, and also in the Netherlands, in Stein, actually, in Limburg, which was groups of people that would come back every Wednesday and Saturday, and all of that material is also available, and you can see if you go through that, also in Dutch, by the way, that there's a lot of steps that are taken. There's a lot of practical information for you to work with. Just to get my linearity straight here, then after Source, there's Eva. After Source, that material was finished, we started with the Cosmic 12, which at first were a little bit mysterious about their origins, but very soon it became very clear that these were the Ascended Masters, such as Dame Saint Germain, Kutumi Lal Singh. Singh is certainly part of his name, because if any of you go to the website or have listened to Kutumi in 2007, then you'll hear me sing. Because he likes to come in and start with a song. He always does, and he always changes all of the words into Kutumi, almost. I hope you're going to enjoy that energy, maybe on the 29th of October, when we have our first metaphysical salon here as well. The room and the house will be a bit further advanced by then. Initially, we were only planning to start like in February or something, but I couldn't wait any longer. That's why everything is half finished at the moment. But it gives you an opportunity to go back to all the old material. After the Cosmic 12, after Kutumi and Adamus and all of the others started making themselves known, we also started getting messages of an entity which I already spoke about earlier, called Solaris, or Das Solarys San. Solaris is basically the consciousness of the central sun, the heart of all of the black holes and central suns that are part of our solar system, our galaxy and all the other galaxies. She speaks of herself as the energy that all of us pass through or spend time with as we go into this reality. She's a very loving energy, and I hope that all of you, maybe on the 29th, get a chance to hear her and experience her live, because it always makes us cry, to be honest, when Solaris comes in. And after that, things kept evolving. More teachers. The Pahdasan'ka San is one of those teachers. You could call him the teacher of teachers. And many more. In the last couple of years before we took a break in 2016, let's say, we were getting messages called the solar activations, and they are messages from this sun, our Earth, our moon, Venus, all the planets in the solar system, basically, and they have quite some messages for humanity, especially if you look at the years that came after 2016. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a summary of everything that you can actually find on our website, and also the evolution that this work has gone through. As you listen to the very first messages, we always have to laugh with this, of the family of light, the distance, metaphysically speaking, between this body and them was so vast that they always raised the pitch of the body's voice to such a level that you sometimes think it's not going to get recorded, that only dogs could hear it. But that gradually changed over the years, and all of the beings that come through now are more used to the body. Ultimately, I may have to say that I am not the original being that started all of these messages. That was David Dubier. He was the original body owner, as I often call him. He was the person that was born in this body. He started in 2004, 2005 with automatic writing, which, if you look at the very first message, session 1, on our website, is actually the result of that. He was at a meditation evening in a house of a friend, and in the middle of the meditation he reaches for his notebook, he feels that happening, and he begins to bring in these messages from the family of light. After a few messages, 6 or 7, that became spoken, and he established a very deep personal relationship with all of the beings that came through, and in April 2007 was given the chance to leave the body and continue his evolution elsewhere. And that is exactly what he did. And we still applaud him for that. I know that may be strange for some of you to hear, but after that, it was the era of 2 years at least of Yeshua ben Ekara in this body. An energy that is very closely connected to the Ekara energy that you are going to be listening to, hopefully in a minute when I finally stop talking, is what I just heard. He was here for 2 years. I won't say too much about him. You can listen to him. There's a beautiful and very long 3-part seminar on our website called The Meaning of Life. And in that series of more than 50 videos or something, you can watch Yeshua in action. You can say who you like best, him or me. And you can listen to a lot of the material I just spoke about earlier today in that particular seminar series. In that seminar series is when Mastering the Grand Illusions was recorded. In itself a series of 14 parts, which speak about the basic issues that keep us from establishing the type of constant community and the type of open-hearted personality that I was just talking about. And these grand illusions are the grand illusion of form, that's a big one, time, space, exchange, death, and separation. And as Ekara always explains it, he says, just look at the hand if you want to easily remember how these work. Because you could say the first five, form, time, space, death, and exchange, could be seen as the separate fingers of the hand, while separation is the palm of the hand connecting all of the fingers. So the illusion of separation is the one that is keeping all of these other ones alive. The illusion of our separate forms, the timing of linearity in which we experience reality, space, exchange being in everything, not just in money. Even these words are exchange right now. You can't go without these illusions if you are creating a vibrational reality. But you can rise above them. You can invert their geometries, as I've just said, and turn them back into their original states, which are love, joy, freedom, truth, gratitude, grace, and well-being. Or in Lemurian, love was expressed as Da, joy was expressed as Ba, freedom as Va, truth as Ra, which is good news for anyone that loves the law of one, Ra, and life as Ka. Now, these are not necessarily the energies. Some people get confused. They think Ba, and then they think back to Egyptian times, and they think it has to do with Merkaba and those sorts of things, but it doesn't. These are much more foundational building blocks, which literally are the only thing that you come into this life with and that you will leave this life with again. Whether that is through death or through ascension or through alien abduction, I don't know. But one way or another, this is a finite experience, and at some point you will be done with it. When you are, all of those inverted geometries that manifested themselves as everything around you, the matter, the people you see, everything, will go back to those building blocks. That is what you will experience, because that is the original state from which you, as the creator self, hail. The place from which you come, in which you could even argue this entire reality that we currently sit in is being manifested. I speak about that a lot in videos starting in about 2018, I think, which you can also find on the website. In fact, I will say that the study on our website falls apart into two main blocks. The first one is the study of vibration, and that one ran from 2004-05 all the way into 2016. Now, mainly, the work that is coming out now is called the study of the Pa. Now, the Pa is not short for path. The Pa is the unmanifestable reality that we hail from, the reality that is not form, the reality that is not vibration, the reality that is simply based on these building blocks that if you keep coming here, you're going to get very tired of hearing me say, because I say them a lot: love, joy, freedom, etc. Many people think many people think it's too simple to simply think that by working with those building blocks, everything else, all of the complicated information that you may have heard throughout the years in lectures, even in the study of vibration, if you know our work, but also in much of the other work that has been coming through ascended beings on this planet or via ascended beings brought to this planet, ultimately comes down to these basic things. Again, as I said earlier, this is why we started this place, to make a place where everyone can come and practice this and make it real. This is now only an introduction. But once we start our regular events, starting on the 29th of October, metaphysical salons we call them, everything will be very different. Yes, there will be channeled messages that you may sit and listen to, but most of the time it is going to be all of us that come through this body on a regular basis that are going to be working with you directly. This is a practical school, not a theoretical school. And if you go back far enough to the old work, to the first time I actually came into this body, which was in also in about 2006, when I was only coming in to present these channeled messages myself before I took over from Dayeshua San. You can go back all the way there and see my modus operandi, my working method, which is going to be, and also of all the others, very practically driven, taking you deeply into metaphysical space and allowing you to find that there you can do things, you can experience things that are, technically speaking, from the perspective of science and from the perspective of mind, simply impossible. Now, I'm not going to be that person that says, when you say impossible, it says I'm possible. I just was. But they are not impossible. Everyone that is here, that lives here with us, knows that these things are practical realities. Everyone that lives here knows that you can go into spaces that are metaphysical spaces, where you can be trained, where you can be taught, and come back to this moment without having lost a second here. All of these things may sound fantastical, but they are real. And it is my hope that in the course of the future of the self and the other, that is coming up, that you will start to not believe me, but that you will agree with me based on your own experiences. So, I hope that helped to add a little bit of context to what is going to come next. I thank you again, and maybe now it's time to get us into the meditation. What do you think, Pahdasan'ka? All right. Enjoy this experience. As I said, after the meditation, the Ekara sun will come in directly, and you will see me on the flip side. Come to a place of stillness, a place of the heart. Come with me to a place where you, the chair you sit in, the room that surrounds you, and everyone that surrounds you in it are one. Begin by focusing on your breath. The most simple, most beautiful gift that reminds you with each passing second that the totality of you is not merely here, but comes from a place of wholeness, of oneness, of love. As you focus on this simple idea, I invite the energy of the dolphin to join us in this space. It comes swimming out of your heart, surrounds you with its joyful love and with its presence, reminding you that life is vast, that life is beautiful, and that you are life. Come with me, this dolphin says. Join me and let us move to a space that is you before any of this. You before you took your first breath. You that chose to be here now, to be an ambassador of what is true, of what is beautiful, of what is real. Life is the most beautiful creation that we collectively manifest in this moment, yet it can be forgotten with an abandon that can only come from an avalanche of thought, of emotion, things that are often celebrated, but things that pass. And today, here and now, you are invited to focus on the things that are permanent, the states that do not come and go, the states of being that are underneath it all. State of love, state of joy, and a state of freedom. Stay here. Allow yourself to exist here. And allow yourself, when you emerge from it, to take with you who you truly, selflessly are. Without the self, without even the I am. A state that precedes this, the state of love. I hope you are comfortable in this moment. I hope that you can truly say within, all is well. And that this realization is not the result of what goes around in your head or in your world, but simply because you come home to you. And now, enjoy the words and the presence of the Ekara San. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am the Ekara San, sovereign servant of free energy, upholding the principles, the universal principles of love, of joy, of freedom, and of truth. It is indeed a strange sensation to sit here in front of you, because for most of you, years have passed, lifetimes have passed, personalities have passed. They have come and they have gone. And in the most beautiful of manifestations that is this reality, you don't even remember any of it. You sit here willingly accepting a limitation of time-based, space-based perspective that you call a lifetime. And it is good that you do, because it is only in these creations, these lifetimes, that you can experience yourself. That you can learn what you might create, who you might be if you no longer remember who you are. And this and every other lifetime that you have experienced is the result. In doing so, you discover, as some would like to say, that which you are and that which you are not. But that is not exactly the truth, is it? Because there isn't anything that you are not. So what is it then that these lifetimes, these realities, we call them Ekarayas in the good old Lemurian days, what are they about? Well, they are about discovering that part of yourself that we label savok, or in English terms that we label mind. Your mind is what you come here to experience. A beautiful, pristine, and extremely experimental creation that is so tight that it can only exist for a finite period of time, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Thank God for the end. Many people don't usually say thank God for the beginning, because you don't remember. Nor should you. Because remembering, really, truly remembering, would seize this experience instantaneously. You would not die. You would simply never have existed here. So therefore, the choice to remember is one that most people don't make, because it cuts short the experience. You have come in here with exactly what you needed to know, exactly what you needed to carry with you in order to have the experience, and nothing more. And you've come with a set of tools that have been mentioned in the presentation earlier already, and many other things that I've spoken about before. Tools that allow you to unpack this mind of yours. Now, while you are in this reality and you've split yourself up between the state that you are and the state that you are not, i.e. the mind, you have done by default and by necessity the same thing with the world around you. It too has a mind. It too has destructive powers, destructive thoughts, thoughts that most of you would never act upon when they have to do with your own being or the being of another. But when it comes to the being of the world, as the Kwan San said earlier, most of you don't think that you have any influence except for the external conditions, yet it is simply the other way around. Your reality begins inside of you, and it ends inside of you. There is going to come a time when science evolves to such a level, becoming scientific adults, you could say, that they are going to understand this. In fact, there are many that already do. But unfortunately, as it goes in the scientific world, change only comes when those that had the original wrong idea die, or at the very least, retire. Then there's openness for true change in the scientific paradigm, and this is happening here now too. And it is not just happening because some older generations are making way for newer ones. These changes can happen inside of the mind of anyone. A 75-year-old scientist could come to a new conclusion if the time is ripe. And this is what I'm here to tell you today. The time is ripe. I have spoken many, many hours throughout the years, also in the years before that which you know as 2012. That big non-event that everyone waited for, everyone put their hopes and dreams on. Some in this crew even believed, as many pieces of information would falsely have you believe in the past, that just like that, the world was gonna change. The golden seas would come, the rainbows would dot the air, and everything would be different. But I ask you, are you different? Yes, of course, you're different from one moment to the next, but are you truly different? Many of you started hearing about the concept of 2012 and what it would entail all the way back in the 90s, or some in the early 2000s around the harmonic convergence and the concordances that happened around that time. Big stuff in 2001, remember? And it wasn't just metaphysically speaking, big stuff. It's what I want to talk to you about. Because you may not understand yet, but you will soon, that the concept that you think about as 2012, the concepts that you think about as 2001, 9/11, and those sorts of things in human history, they are more connected than you think. I'll explain. Given the fact that you live in a dualistic reality by your own creation, you could change this today, by the way. But given that fact, and given what I have just said about your mind and how the manifestation of the mind within creates the mind of the planet, creates the worries of the planet, creates the concerns that you call suffering, war, poverty, hunger, and indeed death. The big one. All of that created simply because it needs to be here. That is not the problem. As it has been explained earlier, the problem is not the grand illusions. The problem is not the outside world. In fact, there isn't really a problem, because you are in complete control over the state of this earth. But you may not be ready to act just yet because you don't know all of the information that I want to talk to you about today. And this goes back a while. I mean, I can go all the way back to Lemurian days, but I'll leave that for another time. I'm only going to go back now to the 1960s. Because as I said, you are living in a dualistic reality where both the concepts of love, joy, and freedom, etc. exist, but also the concepts of time and space and the other grand illusions and everything that comes with it. Suffering, pain, death. Because of this fact, not only do you have thoughts in your head that would try to control you, but you also have external situations that would try to control you. People, society, governments, belief systems, expectations, ways in which you have to live, that some people think is good because it is the lifestyle of a long time ago. Other people think it's good to break with all of that and live completely different lives. And everyone is in conflict about identity politics, about all the things that supposedly separate us. Where does this all come from? How has it begun that over time it is possible to be in a society where people can't look at each other because of the skin tone color, or because of a class distinction, or because of a cultural distinction? How did this all begin? Now, as I said, I can go far back, but if you start in the 1960s, which I will do, then you will come to understand that in a dualistic reality there are cycles. Cycles of upward momentum and downward momentum, a sinus curve you could call it. Up and down, up and down, up and down within parameters that are fortunately going upward in the long run. This is because of the very simple principle that energy tends to raise itself naturally. Naturally. Without effort, but not unnaturally. With effort to stop it. And this is exactly the cycles that you have been going through in your lifetimes. That's why I'm starting around the 1960s, to show you the flow of this stuff and how it works. So, love, joy, freedom. Let's look at it. 1960, hippie time. Everyone happy, everyone in a state of free love, unless maybe you were a Republican, and then that didn't work out so well. But otherwise, free love, Woodstock, John Lennon, the whole 9 yards. Everything speaking about love, speaking about joy, and people believed in their hearts, just like you all did in 2012, that a change was about to occur and that society would never be the same after all the previous generations got out of the way. Right? Wrong. The 60s became the 70s. And you'll see that all of these things, all of these cycles that I'm going to be talking about today appear in 22-year-long rhythms. So you have the 60s and the 70s. By the time you got to the end of the 70s, it was hard to see a hippie. It was hard to see anyone walking around with their hair out wild. The hippie turned into the yippie. The hippie became the businessman. The hippie, Woodstock, became the stock market, if you will. And you moved from a state where you, maybe not you per se, but where humanity thought freedom in the sense of love had come. And they opened their hearts, and they opened their souls, and they opened their minds without understanding the dualistic reality they were living in. And what happened is the entry of business, big business, that would eventually move all the way into capitalism and globalization the way you know it today. So, 80s. You remember the TV shows, you remember Wall Street, you remember New York, you remember the big banks, the big bucks, walking over people, taking other people out, because it was all about the money. And in that state, everyone in the Western world came to a point of having enough. And in that conditional state of mind, a state of economic happiness was created. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm saying happiness. I'm not saying joy. And just for those who don't know any of this so well, happiness is an emotion. It is structured. It is a geometry that is fixed, and therefore thoughts can occur because of it. Joy is an unstructured feeling. And most people confuse feeling and emotion. And when they do think about feeling, they're thinking about physical feelings, not the feelings that are permanent. A state of happiness is an emotion because it comes and goes. A state of joy is a feeling that is unstructured, not stuck in a box, because it is always present underneath everything, as the Kwan San explained earlier today. So, in the 80s, a lot of people went through the improvement of their lives in financial ways, emotional ways, physical ways. Society seemed to become freer, richer, faster, bigger, better. And for a long time, the continent of Europe was spared this vast tsunami of release into duality. But before you knew it, as it goes, the concepts came flying over here, and the same thing happened here in Europe, as it did in America, as it even did in all the continents that weren't even part of the so-called Western society. So you have the 80s and you have the 90s. Joy, happiness, the idea of improving your conditions. And then, the one following joy in the sequence is freedom. And after the 90s comes the 2000s. And in 2001, most of you, everyone here I believe today was alive, freedom was taken away on this planet. Now, not to worry, I'm telling you this because it's all about the fucking change. I hope you know that. Yes, we swear sometimes. It's your language, not ours. You invented it. Take charge of it. Take responsibility of it. It is all about the change. 2001, Twin Towers, the end of freedom around the world, the end of simply thinking that the world is sane, and the beginning of fear. Fear in everything. Initially in flying, getting on a flight, but eventually it spread to society at large, stadiums, supermarkets, your television, every TV program you watch. How many do you think that you can name that don't focus on fear, on drama, on destruction, or on death? The ones that do maybe last for a season if you're lucky. The ones that don't become the hit that runs 10 years. That's the truth. So here you are in 2000s, freedom taken away on a large scale, so vast that nobody even noticed. So vast because it all was supposed to be safe and for your protection, right? They made you believe that if you boarded a plane, it could be the last plane you ever boarded, and it was the beginning of the cycle of the 60s and onward anyway, of demonizing yet another culture, yet another part of this world, the same way the demonization had already happened previously with the Jewish culture, the black culture, and on it goes. Now at that point, you come into a cycle where at the same time, of course, synthetic freedom, programmed freedom, programmed love, and programmed joy, digital life surfaces. Everyone is all of a sudden on the internet, everyone is on emails, and you begin to eat the poison together with the candy, as many do. And then 2000s, 2010. What's after 2010? The 20s. Now, I can't recall, did anything happen in the 20s? Did anything happen to humanity around that time? Could it have to do, Barak? Could it have to do with truth? The one that comes after freedom. Love, joy, freedom, truth. Your truth got seriously screwed. Everything about it. I don't have to go into detail. We've always said that anything that is done to you on the outside of you cannot really hurt you unless you believe in it and unless you let it. Unfortunately, a lot of people believed. A lot of people let it happen. And a lot of people are suffering the consequences. And I'm not merely talking beautiful humans. I'm not merely talking about vaccines or experimental medicine or lockdowns or any of it. I'm talking about the breaking of human spirit in a way that it had never happened before since those 60s that I'm telling you about. Now, it is very possible that many of you sitting here or listening to this later say, yeah, but you know, I saw through it all. It never really reached me, it never really affected me. And some might say, but yeah, I actually think it is not all lies what happened, and I went along with it, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I'm still alive. Well, what's the big deal? There's people that say that. There's many people that say that. Well, the big deal is that something changed in the human mind, just like it did in the 60s, just like it did in the 80s, just like it did in the 2000s, and now again in 2020. 22 years each time. However, the good news, if I may say so, is that cycles are finite and cycles come to an end. Recently, on September 11, 2023, that cycle came to an end. And now you are sitting in what you could consider, said by many, the fourth wave of human consciousness. It is exactly for this reason that we asked the Kwan San, don't wait until February. This must open now. We must begin today. Because, beloved humans, my beloved brothers and sisters, because we are at the beginning of a new era of consciousness. You could say that after this cycle of 2023 that began in 2020, why is it not running? Why is it not running for another 20 years or 22 years? There were many that believed that it would, but it didn't. Apparently, mind and those trying to control things, apparently what they are finding out is that you can only take things so far. And then it was taken further. And then it was taken further. And then it was taken further. The result was a cry of human consciousness, not a cry for help, a cry of birth, a cry of reawakening, a cry that says, this far and no further. A cry that said, the line is drawn here, and you shall not pass. That line has nothing to do with the outside world. That line has to do with the inner world. Because as I said earlier, for most of you, and most of you watching this, and especially those that are out there simply living life, not even believing any of what I'm saying here or anything metaphysical even exists, for most of those people, they don't know what happened to them. They don't know that the person they were before the 60s, or before the 80s, or before the 2000s, and now before 2020, simply ceased to exist. And innocence was trampled upon. And innocence was not lost, however. It was wakened. It is for this very reason that I am not going to share in any great detail what would have happened if this change had not been made, and if this shutting down of love, joy, freedom, and now truth would have gone on for another 20 years. You don't want to know. I can know, because these realities repeat themselves. They tend to repeat themselves quite a bit as you go through these educations of what it means to be you, of what it means to be human, of what it means to be all of these things. They tend to repeat themselves. Sometimes they don't go as far as where this one has gone. Oftentimes, the shutting down of love is enough to break a species, enough to break a spirit, enough to break a mind. Imagine the surprise of those that are also you, of course, that part of you, that just like the alcoholic, just like the addict, digs deeper into their own misery and now decides to slit the throat of joy. And still, no spirit broken. Not really. Affected, yes. Changed, yes. Dimmed down, yes. Broken, no. And the next step, 2001. And now the next step, 2020. And what do you see? I look at you and I see in front of me lions. I see in front of me those that are ready to roar but don't know yet the voice that is truly within them. That is what I see, humanity. And I see that a vast change has happened in these last few years since your lockdowns. Because the change that has happened is that in most people, something is building up, something has been born that now asks questions, that now says, what is this all about really? And if this happened, and if that happened, and if these people lied about this, and if these people lied about that, then maybe there's other things like that. There's other situations where the truth is not necessarily spoken. Because as I told you, it is the shutting down of truth that this 22-year cycle would have been about. But it didn't. The very same digital reality that was created to shut you up, to put you in boxes that you would never walk out of. Echo chambers, they call them these days. That very same reality is the reason why the plan has failed. There are too many minds connected now. There are too many hearts connected now. There are too many souls that know truth for falsehoods, reality and lies. And many, and I hope there are many here too today, quietly within themselves think, Mother Creator, never again. I have more in me than what I have been living. I am more than these things. I am more than these situations that have been taken away from me, or at least have been attempted to be taken away from me. I am. And the only thing stopping that from becoming a reality, something that is not just words spoken on this stage, but activity that bursts forth in your hearts, the only thing stopping it is you. The only thing stopping it is you deciding that it is still good enough. That it still could go a little bit further, you know. Let's see what they have in mind for the shutting down of life. Well, you know it. Transhumanism is coming, isn't it? The first upload of the digital, of the human mind into the digital mind. That would have been planned for somewhere early in the 40s. And that would have been the shutting down of life itself, because if you even believe for 1 minute that you are something as simple as computer code, that can simply be put on some sort of AI algorithm on some server somewhere and can live forever in a reality that you're supposed to come into just to learn some lessons, well then, you've got another thing coming. But that was the next plan. You can see it happening already. But it's not happening. I guarantee you, it's not happening. May sound like a big piece to chew off, but it is not happening because you are here today. Not just people sitting here in these chairs, not just people watching this later on, but you are here on Earth today. Did you know that? Sometimes you forget, you know. It's so common to wake up every morning and to go to bed every night and to think, oh yeah, here I am again, this is me again, okay. Never do you think, maybe there's something, or maybe there's something else that I actually also am, that is having this experience. But it is that something else that is coming through humanity now, the Creator Self. That part of you, if you can believe it, in a metaphysical reality that is not finite, that set itself down and decided to enter into this reality for that which is to be experienced here. A reality that you are co-responsible for intercreating with everyone else, together with all of the teachers that teach in these realities, together with all of the loved ones that you have in this reality, together with all of the ones you hate, at least societally speaking. I can't imagine that anyone here hates anyone. But as a society, nobody loves Hitler, and yet Hitler is you. Nobody loves Putin or Zelensky or Biden or Bush or any of these people. Nobody likes the bully. Nobody likes the person hurting them, but it is you. And these are the times in which that memory will come again. Thank you very much. As I said, the spell of humanity has been broken. And now is the time to not discard your lives, per se, but to expand them, to build into the existence that is you the possibility of ascension. That word, that idea that everyone knows theoretically, nobody knows how to do it. And those that think they do, they're simply listening to voices that have been saying for the last 150 years that it's around the corner and that it is a event that is just going to happen. No. You can walk away here right now, but it won't just happen. There's work to be done, and it's fun work. There's work to be done in the breaking down of your personality and its walls, and your ego and its walls, and your mind and its walls. That work is simpler than you think and more effective than you could possibly imagine. But now, let me get to 2012. for a moment because I skipped it, didn't I? 2012 is an interesting one to us. Not just myself, but also the others, Kutumi, Adamus, many of the ones that speak here, Lemwaya, a tachyonic being that you would identify as dragon energy that is currently sitting in these trees outside. All of us have been saying for so long, since 2007, do not get your hopes up on 2012. 2012 was never supposed to be the answer. 2012 was a project. And I call it a project because it came literally from the think tanks of those organizations that you would call CIA and those sorts of things. I don't even need to name names. I have nothing against these organizations. All I'm saying is 2012 was a form of human control. And so was the New Age movement. All of these things with enough truth mixed in with lies to make it so that a lot of people went astray, stopped doing the work and started thinking that it would be done for them, that it was just going to happen. And isn't that always much easier? It's easier to get a limo arrive in front of your house than to have to take the bus, then the train, then the airplane, then the train again, then walk for 5 miles and get up the mountain. It's much easier if the limo just comes. And so everyone was put to sleep. But, beloved human, but it didn't end there. Around some time, let's say 2008, 2009, we decided, coming through this body and many others around the world, all right then, if everyone that is currently in this Lightworker New Age zone believes in 2012 with all of their hearts so much, well, let's use it. Because as we've said so many times, you express the reality that you experience. So if everyone had these hopes about the concept of December 2012, we openly said, well, let's do it then. Let's do it. And in 2007, we began a series of classes known as the Mastering the Grand Illusions and anything that came after that, in order to help people get there, in order to use that point of December 21st, 2012, just like any other portal, just like an 1111 portal, an 888 portal, the Lion Gates portal, whatever portals you use. Or before the portals, it was the moon, the harvest moon, the Lemurian moon, the this moon, the that moon. No problem with any of these things. You express reality into being. So if you believed in these things, they could happen. And as such, speaking about these things very openly like we did back in 2007, we began to work with you. Or at least work with those that were there then, those that were following this material back then. And some, who are here today, by the way, actually took this and worked with it. Now, most, unfortunately, didn't. So for those that often send in the questions to this body, what about 2012? When did nothing, why did nothing happen, and when is it going to happen? We can tell you, it didn't, because most people that listened to these types of messages back then did so in a passive way, loving the energy, enjoying being in the energy, allowing many releases to happen and many improvements in their being and in the world around them, usually the local world around them, but not to the extension that was necessary to actually initiate the change. Reason being, the inability, the illusory inability to let go of the past and the illusory inability to try and shape the future. Or not per se the inability, but the desire to try and shape the future. Without realizing that the only thing that you can give shape to is this moment. Another thing that all of you have been bored to death with for so many years as you read your books, you went to your seminars, many of you are teachers, healers, presenters, have your own businesses in this sort of spiritual cote. But the changes, ladies, gentlemen, and other beings, the changes, where are they? They're sort of here, actually. If I feel into the bodies, they're sort of right here. They're in the heart, but they're not in the mind, and therefore they are not in the belly. And the belly is what manifests your reality, the chakra that is here. All beings, almost all beings, got stuck thinking it was a nice idea, 2012. It was a nice theory, but I plead with you, please go back and listen. Watch me speak and others back in those days and listen to what we said. Listen to the steps that were required. And then discover for yourself whether those steps were taken or not. And please, do not take my words as judgmental. That is the last thing I want to do. I simply need to point all of these things out so that you understand the opportunity that is here and now. Nothing to do with this school, everything to do with you and you and you and all of you and everyone watching, even those that aren't watching. Everything to do with you. You have broken the cycle that was building, that was to the point of reaching for your throats, metaphorically speaking, and starting to squeeze the life out of you. You have stopped that, and now you sit as a species, as a consciousness at the beginning of a new wave, a new era. This era, as I've said before, as others have also said before, broke and started in September 11 of this year, 22 years to the date, that every single one of these cycles switched. So you see, there are these larger cycles, and there are the cycles within those cycles, each time giving you the opportunity to begin again, to make new choices, to step out of the hypnosis that you're in and open your eyes, open your hearts, and begin to live the life of the Lemurian, the life that is based on love, based on joy, based on freedom, based on truth and on life force itself. A life that is focused on ascension, where ascension is not simply escaping this reality or rising above this reality, but simply the logical conclusion to the exercise reality that you are currently in, called an Ekara. If you want, you can learn much more about these words. You can study them. You can bring whatever you want out of them, whatever you want. But it is up to you. It is up to each of you to make this choice and to understand that you do not sit in a life that is being lived for you, but to understand that there are things for you to find out about yourself that you currently simply have no idea about because you're looking at too small a space. An example: where does your body end? Does it end here? Does it end at the skin? Does it end at the magnetic fields, the geometric fields, all of these things that are around it? Or does the body stretch as far as you can see? The latter, I would suggest. It is for this very reason that expression before experience is even a thing, that it can even be done. Because your body is not the body of you. It is merely an avatar so that you can define the space between yourself and the other and experience these so-called grand illusions, like separation. But the body goes further than that. The body is all the matter that you see around you, and all the people that you see around you. That's the body. The body stretches as far as the horizon, if that's where you're looking. And for any astronaut on the International Space Station, their body reaches into infinity because that's where they're looking. The body goes as far as the eye can see, as the ear can hear, as the tongue can taste, and as the skin can touch. That's the body. And once you understand that, everything changes. By default, you cannot see beyond a world of separation if you separate yourself in your belief systems. But if you embrace it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, well, then by default, your illusion of separation diminishes and disappears, or at least begins to, for those that might be looking for answers there. So, the 2012 project, or as I like to call it, the 2012 debacle, was a scenario where we tried to go along with you, to build the energy up to that point, because that is what you believed was possible. And unfortunately was a boat that was missed by many simply because people did not feel ready to make the changes within themselves that were required in order to be an ambassador and an active vessel, an actor within the transformation. Within, literally. Now, however, and especially with the breaking of this cycle that started in 2020, let's say, there is a great opportunity. Not one to build towards, like 2012 was, but one to make real now. Today and tomorrow and the next day. One to start living right now. That is what is here. And this may be the simplest of messages, but it is the truth. There you have it. You have this opportunity now to do and make real all of those things that are floating around in your head when you open the folder spirituality, metaphysics, enlightenment, light work, whatever you call it. Everything that is in that folder in your head can be realized, but it will require work. And that is what we are here for. To offer you the tools and the opportunities to work within yourself but also with others around you in this community, to come together, to practice, to see these things for yourself. And as I said, and the others have said, we voluntarily chose to make all of this freely accessible to any human on the planet, simply to take that obstacle out of the way. For some, money would have been a barrier that would have been too expensive. Others would be like, well, you are not supposed to make money with spiritual things. Others would have been like, well, you see that it's all just a business model, a earning model. So we worked together, this crew and I and all of us, and we decided to pull that plug out so that nobody could say that we want anything out of this. Well, I do want a hug. I do want to see you grow. And I do want you to know how much we love you. How much you mean to all of us. Every single one of you. And how much of an honor it is to be able to stand in front of you here today and to bring back these tools to you, to give you the opportunity to take these steps, which, granted, and I say it again, you can find within yourselves. As the Kwan San said earlier in the day, there's no need to come here. There's no need. You're not going to get the secret. You're not going to get it trademarked. You're not going to be able to sign an NDA when you leave here, once you've ascended or anything like that. Now sign the NDA. Non-disclosure of ascension. No. All we're doing by creating this space and creating these opportunities is to accelerate the process. Because where two or more gather in the name of love, gather in the name of the Creator, reality is created and reality changes. It is possible to do all of this extremely by yourself, to pack up and leave and go sit on a mountain somewhere and never see another human being again. Yes, you can find it that way. But, as I said, that takes some time. We found this out with the Tibetans and with some others that did this before you. However, putting consciousness together, opening hearts and understanding that each of these heart spaces here is the same heart space, the same one, baby, is exactly what you need, is exactly the accelerant that you need to start this fire of consciousness. So, our doors are open, our hearts are open, our minds are open, and we are ready to work with you. The big question now is, are you? Or do you choose to be? It's that simple. The choice doesn't have to be made today. There is no choice to make, really. You can make the choice moment to moment. Do you feel like being here? Come here. We're always here. At least the Kwan San, that is currently channeling me, is always here. And in case you wondered, yes, that is the Kuan Yin that you think of, in a male body. Figure it out. As such, always welcome. We will create moments like this one that we call salons, where we can use the fact that you still need your schedules in many cases to put in your appointments and make sure that you know what's happening 2 weeks from now, future of the self, future of the other. But, and you are welcome to join those, But for those that are here, that don't live off the calendar anymore, that say fuck it all, you are welcome anytime. And I mean that with the bottom of my heart intact. It's not a bottomless pit. Always. So, having said all of that, I would say, let's get going. For those of you interested, our next class, in which we will make this practical, will be on October 29th. Put it in your calendars. We will then deeply, deeply go through everything that you might have missed in these previous colleges that have happened throughout the years, and we will give you, in about 6 hours, a summary of all of the tools that are already available, put in a way together that you can understand how they work together. From the active ingredients that were mentioned earlier of reality creation, to the grand illusions, to working with the elements, to understanding Lemurian society, to move beyond your Dutch or English languages and step into that which is known as Dalin, which is why love is referred to as Da, joy is referred to as Ba. Dalin is a metaphysical language which is the only language that is effectively real and usable outside of these holograms that you currently find yourself in, that you call realities. Dalin is not only a language, it is literally the building blocks of society. When you express Da, you don't just say I love you. You express that love, you build it, you create it, you bring it forth like a spell, and you manifest it in this reality over and over again. Dalin, when you learn how to express yourself, you will see is the simplest language or metaphysical expression that you can ever learn, because it is based simply on three things, if I may say so. One, the active ingredients: love, joy, freedom, truth, life, gratitude, grace, and well-being. Or, as I just said, Da, Ba, Va, etc. And simply the chakra system and the elements: earth, fire, water, air, that create this world around you on a lower, more vibrational level than the active ingredients themselves. Those are expressed even easier. You only need one letter, not two. Earth, Oh, Ah, Eh, and Ich. Those very simple expressions, plus the active ingredients that I just told you about, each time with whatever you're trying to express, comes together in what we call a geotrinity, because we like to sound fancy. But truly it is just a triangle, if you want. A triangle where anything, for instance a word like a greeting like Sanake, is simply represented each time in a triangular geometry and expressed. The most beautiful thing about this is that I challenge you, if you wish, to look at any existing language right now in the universe, or at least let's stick to Earth. Anyone on Earth, all based on those same building blocks: Da, Ba, Va, Ra, Ka, twisted up regularly in that which you would call geometry. This is not the point of today's class, so I'm not going to go deeply into this. But all I'm telling you is that if you give it a chance, you might be surprised with what you're going to find, and with the ease and grace with which the work that is ahead actually can be lived. So, Having said all of that, this black hole that was 2012, that took so many spiritual, new age, light worker people into this black hole energy, can now be seen for what it is. The hopes and the dreams that you don't even know you allowed to die there back in 2012 are still with you. Where do you think all that energy went? Everything that all of those people, not just yourself, but millions of people around the world have been building up towards. Where do you think it went when nothing happened? It didn't go anywhere. It is still right here. It is still available to you. So that means that not only do you now sit at the beginning of a wave of consciousness where no longer these restrictions will have an effect on you like they did before, but where you also have a reservoir, a near infinite reservoir available of previously built up energy that is just sitting there, waiting for you to use it. Anyone that sees with energetic eyes, except for the physical limitations of the waves that you can call visible light, can see it. And it has been here since then. It cannot be used for bad, it cannot be used for drama, it cannot be used for any negative agenda. It is free energy. And it has been here for over 15 years. Now, don't look for those that understand my words and that feel something with them. Don't look at those years since 2012 as, or just before that, as a mistake. Don't look at it as a loss. Don't look at it as something that failed. Look at it as a lunchbox that you have prepared the day before going to work, something to take with you, to give you sustenance, to give you the energy that you, those that will take this up, are going to need. In other words, it is 2012 all over again. And those that spoke back then, for those that wish to go back and listen, and even those that some here may not like by names such as David Icke, one of my incarnations as Ekara. We told you in that body, we told you in this body, we told you in many bodies, months before December, don't count on it. Nothing is going to happen. The main phase of that time already took place in October of 2011 during a metaphysical event called Ascension of Life After All Matter, or Life After Ascension of All Matter. It was a transformational event for all vibrational energy in the universe, but still nothing was done with it. To do something with it, that time is now. Well, having said all of that, I thank you for listening. I thank you for contemplating these words. I thank you for considering what your life truly is about and why you are living it. Whatever the conclusion is you come to, one thing is sure: I love you. I don't just love you, I am in love with you. I am in joy with you. And together, beloved humanity, We are freedom. Let this moment be a marker that states loudly to the world, humanity is awakened. And let you, those here today, and those listening to these words, be the ambassadors for this truth. That even if you never come back to this hall, that you allow to take with you what you believe of these words to be true, and that you do not hold it back just for the self, but that you open your hearts, your mouths, and your bellies, and that you inspire a new wave of consciousness for this planet and for humanity. I will see you when I see you, and so it is.